This is a bit unusual, but we're going to launch right into a public hearing. So we are here to open the Masters Academy special permit and site plan approval. Before we get going, I want to do a few introductions. My name is Lori Clark. I am the current chair of the planning board. I'm going to ask the planning board to please introduce themselves. Karen?
Karen Kelleher.
Meg?
Margaret Costello, planning board member.
Nancy?
Nancy Arsenault, planning board member.
John?
John Colonna Romano, planning board member.
Debbie?
Debbie Woods, associate voting member.
All right. And then Valerie?
I'm Valerie Ortiz. I'm the planning director.
And Michael.
Michael Sligo, land use planner.
All right. I'm not sure who all is here from Masters Academy or their representatives. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Laurie, do you want me to waive the reading of the public hearing?
Oh, good idea. So before we do that, yes.
I move that we waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
Second.
Any discussion about waiving or reading of the public hearing notice? All right, we'll take a roll call vote on that. John?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I. Okay, so let's have introductions from the Masters Academy side, and then before we launch into anything, I'm going to do a bit of an overview about procedure for tonight.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. Peter Masters. I'll, I guess, start the discussion on our side, but I thought the other folks from our team should say hello before I get going. So guys, just jump in.
I'll start. I'm Ken Kovacs from Plansburg Architects, the principal architect for the project.
I'm Jake Mary with Scalora Consulting, an owner's representative representing Masters Academy. And I know we have Enzo Scalora here as well.
Jonathan Chark from Activitas, registered landscape architect, associate principal, and landscape designer for the athletic portion of the project.
I'm Brian Lawler, principal with SMMA, and we prepared the site plan special permit application with the Masters team.
Mike Santos with VHB. We're the transportation consultant on the project, and we prepared the traffic study that was included with the planning board submission.
Marisa Fryer, civil engineer, also with SMMA.
Derek Massionis, civil engineer with VHB, here at Mike Santos as well.
Was that everyone, Peter?
I think so. Maybe we're missing Rich Odell. Are you here? Well, I'm sure Rich is trying to call in, so he will be joining us soon.
Okay. So before I hand it off, I do want to cover for everyone here, welcome, and want to cover a bit of procedure for tonight. So the applicant, Masters Academy, or their designees, will have some time to present and give a project overview. At that time, we can take any initial questions from the planning board, and then we'll move to public comment and question. When we do get there, I'd ask everyone to raise their hand either virtually or physically if you're on camera, and I will call on people one by one. People will have just a few minutes to make comment or ask questions. And I just want to remind everyone of a couple things. One is when people make comment or question, please address them to the board as a whole. The applicant has the right to respond or not respond to any comments or questions. And just remember that any comments or questions by the planning board do not represent the view of the board overall. Certainly everyone who wants to speak will get a chance to do so. And I believe we will be recording the session. Yes, we are recording this session just so everybody is aware. We do only have an hour tonight, and so I consider this an intro for the public hearing, and the full expectation would be that the meeting would get continued, the hearing would get continued to a different night. So I do want to set everyone's expectations up front because we do have another public hearing at 8 o'clock as well. Any questions on process before we proceed? All right, with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Peter.
All right, great. Thanks again. Everyone, Peter Masters, I'm lead on the project. Quickly, I grew up in Lexington, went to Boston College, played hockey there with my brother, Chris. I now live in Bedford, Mass, with my wife and 4 children, ages 9 to 17. For the last 25 years, Chris and I have been running the Junior Bruins, one of the most successful sports hockey club programs in the U.S. out of the rinks in Marlboro, about 7 miles from the Vos's property. A few years ago, Chris and I started working to create a full-service sports academy based in New England. This was going to be a day boarding school built for over 600 students, covering grades 6 through PG. The school day consists of 5 hours academics, 4 hours of carved out for your sport. Masters Academy will be offering hockey, baseball, lacrosse, soccer, basketball, fencing, just to name a few. After a few years of twists and turns, we closed on the property back on early May. And for those who might not know, it's 82 acres. Main building is 312,000 square feet. There's a 12,000 square foot Butler building, a water treatment plant, and close to 1,000 parking spaces. Over the last 10 weeks, our team has been working feverishly to build out our programming and lay out the property. All in, we have about 2,100 hours collectively into it, and it'll give us the bones needed to kind of deliver on our vision. Our master plan has many phases, but phase 1, which is what we've been submitted to you folks, will include everything we need to operate a high-end New England private boarding school. It has administration and admissions offices, nursing and security suites. It's got a cafeteria for 350 at a sitting, classroom space for 700 students per day, 195 beds for dorms, 2 lighted turf fields, indoor turf space for training in the winter, and over 12,000 square feet of performance center as well. Think big weight room. Ultimately, we hope to grow our enrollment and build out the rest of the property with some more fields and indoor training centers and classrooms and dorm beds. But for now, we'd like to walk before we run. A few weeks ago, we had over 50 Stow families join us, our neighbors, for a tour of the property and a chance to meet our team. And I think they'll agree that the property is laid out in this particular building and location is perfect for what we're trying to accomplish. Years ago, when we started this project, people looked at Chris and I and said, look, you guys know hockey. You know that there's a ton of demand for what you're trying to kind of bring forward, but you don't know anything about curriculum, running a school, running a soccer program, or building a dorm room. And they were 100% correct. And we spent the first 18 months of this project putting all the right people in place to make sure all of those things were covered. First thing we did was nail down the curriculum in the world we're trying to operate in against or with or compete with some of the top private schools in the world. We knew our curriculum had to kind of meet snuff. So we have an agreement with the Newman School, a 75-year-old school based out of Boston, to provide curriculum for our students on day 1. And we will be fully accredited on day 1 as well. On our end, we knew we needed the right leadership to head up our campus. So we went out and found the architects of the most successful sports academy in the world, IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, to come work with us. Rich Odell, who you're hearing a little bit more from later, will head our academy team. Quickly, Rich has been in education for over 40 years. He was the head of school of IMG for 17 years, and he grew their school from 0 students, kind of like us, to 1,100 over that time. Ted Meekma, who could not join us today, but did fly in last week and was at Bose and met a bunch of our neighbors, will join as well. Ted started at IMG back when they were just tennis camps in the 70s And as the camps grew into kind of a year-round endeavor, Ted helped transition into the academy and ran their business office for 30 years. Ted and Rich will work with the Newman School leadership to hire all of our teachers and staff. Mike Schaefer, who's the head of Newman for the last 5 years, was also the head of KUA for 17 years. And between the four of them, bring over 120 plus years of secondary school best practices to Masters. On the sports side, we have commitment from some of the country's top prep and club coaches for all of our major sports. So when we announce, each coach will put Masters Academies, in particular, those sports, on the national map on day one. Last but not least, our construction team, code consultants, owner project managers, and the construction team members, many of whom are on this call, are all tops in their field, and we're really lucky to have them. I know we're on a tight timeline, but if permitting goes smoothly and the weather cooperates, we feel we're able to meet our goals for opening up for fall of 25 with just over 300 students. Thank you all for your time tonight, and our team is eager to answer all of your questions throughout this process.
So, Peter, this is Brian Lawler. Would you like to just add a little bit about the master plan versus phase one?
Sure. Great. Glad that's up. Thank you. So you see the main two white topped buildings. That's a 312,000 square feet that we will build out. The west wing, which is on the south part of that, is what we will build out first. So all the stuff we talked about, or I talked about, that would go into kind of phase one of the school gets built out there, and we would mothball the east wing until there's growth. The boxed phase one turf fields to the south would include two turfed baseball and soccer, lacrosse, field hockey fields. And to the left on building number 3 is the Butler building, 12,000 square feet, that we will clean out, and then turf. It's got air conditioning, it's got heating, so we can do year-round training in there. And so those fields, the Butler building, what we will build in the west wing, plus doing some off-site training, so our hockey team would go off campus over to the New England Sports Center to do their ice hockey training, would be all that we would need to get us up and going.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. So again, my name is Brian Lawler, principal with SMMA. And as I mentioned in the introductions, we prepared the site plan and special permit application with the input of all of this team and others. So I know we have a fairly tight time frame tonight. So the goal for tonight was to go through the introduction, which Peter has done. We'll give a very quick overview of the site plan approval and the special permit applications, and then we'll jump into each of them. We'll just go through an overview of the site plan, and then each of the special permits, the educational use in the industrial zone, which Rich Odell and the Flansburgh team will talk about a little bit. And then we'll get into the special permit for athletic lighting and the special permit for erosion control. So if that sounds about right. Again, just the overview. So we filed a application for site plan, which was a full set of documents and drawings and supporting docs. And we have all of the drawings available if we want to review those for any particular Q&A, but we're not going to go through those in full detail tonight. And then we worked with the planning team to really agree and develop on the list of the special permits that we think are necessary for this project. So let me jump into the site plan, and then we'll go through the 3 special permits if there are no questions. So quick overview of the site plan. As Peter mentioned, it's an 82 acre site bound to the west by the Stow Community Park, Old Bolton Road to the north, and then the site off the entrance off of Great Road along Harvest Drive into the campus. The closest residential lots on this side, Heather Lane. You can see my cursor here, and then Arbor Glen Drive, like so. The site has 3 wetland systems, so we will be filing we have filed a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. The most critical one being along this east side here of the campus. But what the point of this drawing really is to show how limited the site, the proposed site work is. So by example, here is the west wing of the project that Peter referred to. And we are proposing some minor work at the entrance of the main entry on the north side of the west wing, some very minor work at this entry, and some minor work here. But other than that, there's really no site work associated with the building redevelopment. We'll obviously do some minor repair or repaving of some of the entry locations. But overall, there are no changes proposed to the entrance drive, to the circulation, or to the main parking, or the entrance, the emergency access from Old Bolton Road. No work proposed to the treatment plant either. So really the site work itself is very much focused on the athletic fields. So this is a close-up of the proposed fields, and I'll ask John Charwick from Activitas to just add a little more detail.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, Planning Board. So as we previously noted, we're proposing a synthetic turf field that will support 2 baseball fields and 2 rectangular fields in the outfields for soccer, field hockey, and lacrosse. As you can see, the site is fairly constrained as relates to existing property lines, the existing Butler building, and the wetlands to the east that Brian had previously mentioned. So as part of this design, the intent was to try to fit within those constraints and also provide an athletic field that is in appropriate solar orientations for each of their sports. So baseball is a north-northeast orientation and generally an east orientation for the southern field. And then most rectangular fields want to be in a north-south. So that's essentially how we configure the athletic fields themselves. We are proposing these athletic fields be lit, and we'll talk about the sports lighting later on in the presentation. The baseball field amenities will include bullpens, batting tunnels, concrete pads with fences and benches, so there will be no true dugouts, ball netting and fencing around the exterior perimeter of the synthetic turf field to control balls from getting outside the field footprint, and safety for spectators that are watching. And we also have some informal seating areas and some formal spectator seating areas behind the baseball field backstops, and also just west of the soccer field shown on the plan. There's currently a earth mound of about 10 feet in height for some of the septic on site. So we built in some informal seating, so there's some good views down to the field. And then to the immediate east side of the athletic fields, there's a large concrete pad that'll be used for storage for goals, other amenities on site when they need to be removed from the synthetic turf surface based on how they're being used for the particular athletic events. One thing to note, we are providing full handicap accessibility throughout the site. So just north of the northern baseball field, there is an existing crosswalk from the Bose building. There'll be walkways to all the different spectator seating areas, and also several gates to get you in and out of the athletic field. Next slide, Brian. And as it relates to synthetic turf, I want to touch on this briefly. I'm sure the planning board and members of the community will have questions. We'll certainly be able to answer them this evening and in future hearings. Talk a little bit about how the synthetic turf field is made up. So the image on the top left is a 3D image of a typical synthetic turf profile. So as stormwater enters and lands on the athletic field surface, the surface is completely porous, so water will infiltrate vertically through the carpet and the infill and enter into a stone drainage base with a drainage system that Brian can elaborate on with some additional information later on. It is the intent, we have fairly good soils here, so most of the stormwater will infiltrate into groundwater and recharge, but any stormwater that won't be able to recharge will enter the drainage system and outlet toward the east side of the property. In the top right image, the synthetic turf carpet, so that's the back of the carpet itself. So how these drain are there's usually holes perforated in the carpet. So as the water enters the carpet, it'll move through that and through the perforated holes and go into that stone drainage system. The image just directly below the synthetic turf carpet, resilient underlayment pad. So what we do with designs of this nature, there's a pad that will be placed between the synthetic turf carpet and the stone base. That's added safety for users, for shock attenuation and potential head injuries, really assures that the carpet will have a long lifespan, will be as safe as possible for any of the users on the facility. And currently right now, the lower image shows the infill, which is a combination of sand and crumb rubber that gets placed within the carpet fibers. And you'll see on the bottom left, that is the proposed profile of the field. So you see on the bottom, there's the pad that sits on the stone base. And then we have the carpet that gets infilled with sand and rubber. And essentially athletes and users of the field are walking on the combination of the sand, rubber, and the grass blades. Typically, those grass blades are exposed about a ½ inch, and they're meant to lock in the infill so that when you're playing on the field, you don't see what we call rooster tails, which is a lot of times if you're watching an NFL game, someone slides across and sees that infill spray out. So that carpet is meant to keep everything in place so that if athletes do fall on the ground or have impact, all of that energy is being taken from the infill or from the pad underneath. And then just to talk briefly about, I'm sure a number of people have been able to either go online or hear in news cycles about potential safety concerns and health concerns related to synthetic turf. We will certainly elaborate with any questions that are asked by this planning board or the town. Essentially, one of the concerns that has come up over the last several years in a number of different venues is the presence of PFAS. Over the last several years, they have been associated with synthetic turf. I can assure you that when we write our specifications, the turf vendors are able to provide us with documentation that confirms they do not have PFAS either in the carpet materials themselves or in the use or in the fabrication of the carpet systems. It was about 7-8 years ago, they used to use PFAS as a lubricant to actually extract the carpet fibers that you see. They have ceased to do that, and we make sure we get all the documentation from the vendors before we approve any type of carpet system for any of our projects, including this one. The same goes with safety of crumb rubber and sand. So this has been in the news cycle for years and years. There are many studies that have occurred, including from the EPA and one most recent in April of 2024, reconfirming that there's no elevated health risks with the crumb rubber that's used in these synthetic turf fields. Essentially, any of the harmful chemicals in this crumb rubber is not bioavailable, which basically what that means is if you were to ingest it or have contact with the crumb rubber, our bodies are not able to extract any of those chemicals from the crumb rubber. And certainly as a follow-up, we can provide some additional documentation references to those reports and any of those supporting documents that are requested from the planning board or the town's members as a whole.
Okay. Well, thank you, John. So in the just to that's a summary of the site plan, and I know there will be more questions for sure. But again, the goal is really to just demonstrate how limited the proposed limit of site work is. It really is very focused on the ball fields themselves. So with that, we'll run through the 3 special permits that are being proposed or that are being requested. The first is the special permit to allow educational use in an industrial district. And for this, we're going to ask Rich Odell to provide an overview of the educational program that I think will be very helpful for the planning board. And then we'll run through some of the very quick overview of the floor plans.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I was a little late trying to get on to this meeting. I'm Rich Odell, and I have been involved in leading private schools around the country for about 40 plus years, probably most notably building out IMG Academy in Florida. And then after selling that entity, went into doing consulting work where I work with organizations that are interested in creating something similar to what was at IMG, but hopefully ramping up the scale of what we do in these different entities around the country. MAI is the perfect example of an opportunity to do something that is really beneficial for young people, particularly those who are interested in spending more time each day focused on the development of their sport. So unlike the traditional school where you would be either expected or have the opportunity to play 3 sports during the course of a year, what we do at MAI is to give them the opportunity to really focus more entirely in their development on simply that one sport. We will be ultimately 6th through 12th grade, and with postgrads, you've probably heard from Peter early on, day and boarding students who are really passionate about their sport. And our goal in building out this opportunity is to give young people an opportunity for their head and their heart to get connected to the opportunities for learning well beyond just their interest in the sport. And the way a day gets spent at MAI, it starts at 5:30 in the morning with kids getting up, getting ready for their day, getting their area cleaned up in their room so that it's presentable during the day, and then having breakfast, then going to academics for 5 hours a day, and then that followed by lunch, and then their sport component for 4 hours a day. That's followed by time to shower, get ready for dinner, and following dinner is a 2-hour study block that is supervised by the house parents that we have in the building. And then at 9 o'clock, they have an hour of free time, which is really to be with their friends, their teammates, in the social area that we have in the residential facility that you'll see in a few minutes, where there are 2 lounges, a men's lounge and a women's lounge. And they, in those, also have a game area where they can play ping pong or pool or foosball, or just have opportunities to sit with their friends and chat about the day, or chat about where they're from, or what they're getting out of this whole experience at MAI. What makes us a little unique is that we do not rely on people who work for us to be both teacher, coach, and house parent. We employ 3 distinctly different and trained groups to work in each of those disciplines. So our academic faculty are all trained and experienced, and preferably with some knowledge about kids who have a passion in a sport. Because if you can communicate in some of that language, you have a better opportunity to really help those kids see how all of these different puzzle parts, their sport and their academics, their social development, all get connected to create a better human being. So those 3 independent faculties, we would call them, or coaches, all work collaboratively on a child's development with communication each day between those groups to ensure that we're providing the best opportunities for those young people to grow at a pace that is probably better than what they would expect of themselves or what they would get in other institutions. Our curriculum is a solid college preparatory one. We will start this in partnership with the Newman School, which is based downtown in the Back Bay area. We partner with them because as a new independent school, you have to go through a 2 or 3 year probationary period before you can become fully accredited. And so here we will do that with Newman, as I have done when I started IMG and at other schools around the country. It's an acceptable format with a high quality academic program that is taught in the classroom with a teacher in the class. This is not an online school. There will be elective courses available for kids to supplement their academic core curriculum. But at the end of the day, the preparation is such to really give these young people, both in their personal development, in their academic performance, and in their sport, the best opportunities to step forward in life. for MAI, we're offering a fourth component to this, which is helping them in the career arena. Very few of the young people who will come through MAI, much like IMG, ever go on to play the sport professionally. They are more likely to have that opportunity at the university level, possibly with scholarship. And after that, it simply becomes a social and a fun activity. It's not a profession for them. So we try to help them understand that and help them pad themselves with other opportunities. And so at MAI, unlike what I did at IMG, taking it that one step higher, is to give kids the opportunity to also be trained in non-playing sport majors. So the examples I would give there is somebody who might enjoy their sport, but recognizes they're not going to play professionally, but wants to stay in that sport. And so over the years, as we grow out MAI, young people will have the opportunity to major in sports medicine, in sports management, sports rehabilitation, sports psychology, a number of other professions that have a longer life sustainability from an income standpoint, likely than if they were going into simply being a player of that sport. Our curriculum is comprehensive, both academically and also in the athletic arena, because it ties in with their residential life piece. Every week of the year, there is a different word that is the focus of the week. It's a word that is chosen at the beginning of the year for each week to have a focus on how do you build out better skills in young people? How do you build out resilience? How do you understand challenges or just upside down opportunities? How do you think about your relationship with other people? And how do you just find a better, wholesome foundation for your life to move forward on? That's the responsibility of the residential life staff, for which this is their full-time job, to work and nurture these young people. We don't give them a lot of free time, as I noted earlier, because for us, that workday is a long day, it's a hard day, and the kids get into a routine that lets them really recognize that their commitment is only, and their opportunity is only reached if they commit the time to doing what we ask of them so that they can maximize that growth. We have an opportunity, possibly, and I emphasize possibly, that in our conversations with different organizations around the country, we have been negotiating at this point with USA Fencing as possibly coming to MAI as its permanent home, as the training facility, and also as their headquarters. This is not a definite by any means. We are just in that process, and hopefully we'll get to move forward next week with further discussions about that. But it is a program that, if it does come to us, will give much visibility to MAI. It will give the young people who are in that program of fencing an opportunity to excel as they wish to, which right now, through the USA Olympic, they don't have as much of that opportunity. We will do a lot more in that arena. Graduation requirements are the same as they would be at any high profile, very strong independent school in the New England area. As I mentioned, the placement, the guidance, the personal development are all critical pieces. We supplement that with our camp programs, which happen principally during the summertime. It is how we help find the kids who really want to be in our environment for the academic year. Our costs of doing all this are subsidized in the sense that we make dollar commitment to financial aid. In the first year, it'll be 30% in order to help our kids who have the interest, have the ability, and also have the perseverance and the passion to know that there is a place they can come to and they can excel at that and hopefully be with us for that full 4-year period of high school. Now, if we can go to the facility slide, we're going to look first at the basement, the lower level, we call it, which is an area designated principally for sports development. It has the strength and ability, the weightlifting pieces, equipment in it. It will also have a robotics lab that you can see to the left in the picture. It will have other workout facilities and esports down there as one of our sport majors. And then an area that right now is designated as classroom in the lower part of the picture, which will likely be, if we are to get the fencing program, that will be the first place where we have their lanes for fencing. To the next slide, please. The ground floor does not have a lot of change to it. Now, again, this is half of the building that we're talking about using. So the pinkish color is our dining facility, also the kitchen area and a couple of large assembly rooms to the left. The longer piece that's done in the light green or the mustardy color going beyond that is security, also our healthcare facility, which is 24 hours a day. And then the mustard color is our administrative offices, and at the bottom of your picture is the admissions area. The main entrance to MAI will be through the doors that you see right above the lower mustard area. All of the light blue color are the classrooms that'll be built out in that space. All will have windows around the perimeter. And the inside ones will be smaller classrooms, but all of that plus the blue that you see up above is a sufficient number of rooms for us to deliver our program, because with the schedule that I mentioned earlier, 5 hours of academics, 4 hours of your sport, we literally flip the day so that the students who have academics in the morning have sport in the afternoon, and those who have sport in the afternoon, the other way around, have the academic piece. Sport in the morning, have academics in the afternoon. So we run 2 full rotations of young people through our academic space in the course of a day. And that lets us utilize it much more wisely and more efficiently as well. The third floor or second floor is the one that has the most development. That is the development of our residential area. You see the lower part of it, the blue colors represent the men's dorm rooms, which will be either 2, 3, or 4 students to a suite, bedroom in that area. The yellowish color around the perimeter are the house parents. So there will be 8 of them on that floor who support the 180 to 190 students who will live in that space. The interior middle group of purple and blue color are flex spaces that we can use depending on our male and female enrollment. And then the green area right above that is the lounge areas for the men and the women. The top, the pinkish red color, is the ladies' bedrooms. And then in the left-hand upper corner is the student game room where the ping pong and pool will be, that can be used both by the men and the women. So most of the work, as mentioned earlier, is on this 3rd floor. And with that, I'll switch it to Ken to put any other comments in that he wishes as our architect. Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with Rich and the educational leadership team with masters here. And they were very diligent about right-sizing their program to the building. And that's why we're in the West Wing. It's approximately 180,000 square feet. And as Rich said, that lower level, the basement level, is 95% intact. And that's not just the walls. We kept the rooms where they are, but we also took advantage of spaces that are already there, such as fitness. That correlates to our mechanical and our electrical, our lighting systems. So we're able to keep a lot of the existing systems that were upgraded along the way with Bose in place. So this is around 95% intact as we go to the 1st floor. As Richard mentioned, the cafeteria, which is a major space, remains, as well as everything you see on the left-hand side. So this is around 60% intact. So this means the walls stay the same, and we're trying to be resourceful by taking advantage of a robust mechanical system that's in place as well. And then the blue area is primarily what is being proposed as new, with the 13 classrooms and the science labs and some teacher support space. And then again, as Richard said, the upper level residence hall is pretty much a gut renovation here. So this is the bulk of the work. So when you just think about this project, the school was resourceful in right-sizing their program, and then also diligent about where these spaces go. And it's quite a nice building that adapted to a school's plans. We've been doing schools for over 60 years. And, we feel like this is a great plan. And for the kids coming in, there's a lot of great resources as part of that, as Rich had mentioned. Also, when we look at the perimeter, all the exterior windows are staying in kind. So we were very careful with the planning. So we're not proposing new windows. There's a couple new windows that we need in the dorm, but overall, we're probably at 98% of the fenestrations remaining as is. And then we look at the energy consumption. We're below what Bose had done and used for their energy use because of their labs and their industrial use. So when we go to an e-use, we're well below what the existing energy consumption was for the building. And so we have a great project here that we just gave you a pretty quick overview. And at the end, we can go for more questions. But now I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan to walk us through the sports lighting.
Well, just before we do that, Kent, while we're still on this special permit for the educational use, we're going to ask Mike Santos from VHB to just give a quick overview of the traffic specifically as it relates to the educational use. Mike.
All right, good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Michael Santos. I'm with VHB, and I'm the transportation consultant on the project. Also, I'm a registered professional engineer and certified professional traffic operations engineer. I'm here tonight to give a very high-level overview of the transportation study that was included with the planning board submittal. So as I said, we did prepare a traffic impact and access study that was included with the planning board submittal. That traffic study includes a review of existing traffic volumes at 5 intersections near the project. I'll show you those on the next slide. We conducted a safety evaluation we researched MassDOT crash data. The traffic study evaluates the project impacts to the surrounding roadway network, and it also provides a traffic operations analysis of the 5 intersections that we reviewed. The traffic study reviews the peak operations of the project, which is we're expecting that to be around 1,000 students and 160 staff members. It also includes a opening year, not a full analysis, but just some trip generation numbers from the opening year. So, when the school first opens, it'll have significantly less impact than it will when it's at peak operations. It also includes estimates for a reuse of the existing office space on the site. So, if another user similar to Bose were to reoccupy the property, what that would look like. Again, the project is not proposing any new roadways. It's going to use the existing Harvest Drive as the primary access point, and there will be a secondary access point on Old Bolton Road that will be gated and for emergency access only. We can go back up, go 2 slides ahead, before this one. One more. You can go down one more to the map. There we go. So again, the study looks at 5 intersections spanning from Delaney Street in the west, which is near the Bolton town line, down to Wheeler Road to the east. These intersections will carry most of the project related traffic. We did do traffic counts in early June 2024 when schools were still in session. And the traffic study focuses on both the morning and evening commuter peak periods, which also coincide with the peak operations of the school when students will be dropped off for those that commute. When staff arrives, we expect them to arrive between 7 to 9 a.m. and again in the evening around 4 to 6 p.m., which that's also the peak commuter traffic along Great Road. So those are the peak periods that we looked at just for the operations analysis to make sure that there's sufficient capacity at the intersections and on the roadways. So we can go to the next slide. We did look at where traffic was going to be coming from and exiting to. Throughout the study area, as you can see, this was all based on journey to work data provided by the United States Census. This trip distribution shows about 80% of the trips will be oriented either to the east or west on Great Road. To the west, we have access to Interstate 495 in the Worcester area, and then to the east, it has access to pretty much all of the Metro West area of Boston. And then to the south, you see the the 15 and 5% that's oriented towards the communities of Hudson and Marlborough, where some staff may live or students may live. And again, this assumes that about 30% of the students at full capacity will be day students, which means they'll be commuting to school, either being dropped off and picked up by parents, or they may drive themselves if they have their licenses. And then the remainder of the 70% of the students will just be on the site. So there's really no traffic associated with them. So we can go to the next slide, please. So again, the traffic study includes the peak hour analysis of study intersections, again, the morning and evening, which are the critical time periods. The town does have plans to signalize the intersection of Great Road at Hudson Road. We did incorporate that traffic signal into the future conditions. And again, after the project opens up, both that signal and the signal at Harvest Road should be reevaluated to make sure that they're operating efficiently. This should be an ongoing thing, just for traffic flow in the area. The analysis does conclude that there is sufficient capacity along Great Road and at the intersections to accommodate the project-related traffic. Again, we did do a trip generation estimate of a potential reuse of the office space, or what Bose may have been generating at its peak, which is already several years ago now. And what we did find was that the project is going to generate approximately maybe 30 to 50% less traffic during the peak hours when compared to the office space. The office use is a very high traffic generator, and the signal at Harvest Road was really designed to accommodate that. So there's plenty of capacity to accommodate the project traffic at that location and along Great Road. And again, the parking needs for this project are substantially less than the office use. I think it's about 60% fewer parking spaces are required for this project when you compare it to an office use that has 1,500 employees. So in general, the project has far less of an impact than what an office use would generate if it were to be reoccupied. Even without any office space, the surrounding roadway network and the intersections do have appropriate capacity to handle the project. And then again, we do acknowledge there will be some off-peak hours on the weekends or at night when the fields may be in use. But generally during those times, there's less traffic on Great Road and the surrounding roadways, and the trips generated by the site will still be less than when the school starts and when school is dismissed. Again, the traffic study goes into a lot more detail about all of this, but like I said, this is just kind of a high level overview of the traffic impacts.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike. We're at 7:48 here, and we're going to tick through very quickly the other two special permit requests. And please, Madam Chair or board members, please advise us if we need to take a break or you need to accelerate. But unless you tell us otherwise, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes just to at least introduce the other two special permits.
Let's try to wrap it up in 2 to 3 minutes.
Very good. We can do that. We will scoot through these. The second special permit is for the athletic field lighting. Important to note here that we, as the board is aware, the applicant has filed a variance application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for various aspects of the athletic field lighting, including the lighting levels, so the illuminance levels, setback to property line, and spill of indirect light. So they will be, obviously we can talk about those and how that interacts with the Planning Board and the Board of Appeals, but that filing has been made. We believe the Planning Board still has jurisdiction under 3.8.1.5, including for the height of the light poles. So that is why we are here. I don't think we're going to get into too much detail on this. John, if you could just very, very quickly just explain that what's in the application, and just a minute or two, please.
Certainly. So the plan shown here is our photometrics plan that was as part of the drawing set submitted as part of our filing. It's a 14-pole lighting system for the athletic fields. The proposed foot candles are an average of 50-foot candles on the athletic field, and per the plan, the hatched-in area, the outside limits are where the 0-foot candles are shown, and there's a few foot candles showing where we get to 1 foot and a half-foot candles off that field surface. As Brian mentioned earlier, we do have pole heights between 70 and 100 feet. To explain that, what we need to do to keep spillage and glare to a minimal is try to light as high as possible and have the light shine down on the surface. So that's some of the explanation for the proposed heights. If you want to go to the next slide. Contextually, this is the same overlay of the photometrics showing where the exteriors is where the 0-foot candles will appear. It's important to know when these foot candle photometric drawings are developed, they're developed on 2-dimensional plans, and they aren't able to account for any vertical surfaces. So obviously to the east and to the south, there's heavy stands of vegetation. So we believe that there'll be a little less spillage on those areas where tree canopies create some screening to the east and to the west. And contextually, if you want to go to the next slide, in a real world application, this was a project that we did for the town of Lexington a number of years ago. The blue area is shown where the light is being designed for the athletic field, similar design, a baseball field, a softball field, and a soccer field. And as you can see from the design, the 2-dimensional photometrics, there was glare shown, protruding outside of the footprint of the athletic fields. Specifically, you see on the left-hand side, that's a roadway that's sort of between those property lines. And in the real world application, these are post-construction images showing how dialed in the lighting is to the actual athletic fields themselves. And you can see how quickly we get to 0-foot candles much sooner than the design shows. So as Brian mentioned, this is very high level on the lighting. I'm sure there'll be further conversation as we continue this hearing.
And finally, thank you, John. Finally, the special permit for erosion control, which I think is really quite hopefully relatively straightforward, in that the site is essentially flat under existing conditions. We're talking grade changes of, really between 1 to maximum 3 feet from existing to proposed conditions. So we have prepared a full erosion control plan, which is part of our notice of intent filing to the planning board, and we've provided grading plans and earthwork calculations in our applications to the board. So I think that is it. We ran longer than planned. Apologize for that. And we'll hand it back to the board.
All right, thank you. I think given we have with the limited time we have left, my guess is that the best use, I'm going to recommend that the best use of the time is to throw out topics that we would want to probably go into more detail and understand. And I'm going to start by throwing a bunch out there. I'm going to then invite planning board members to throw other topics. So again, I'm not looking for a back and forth education right now. I just want to get you information about what's on people's minds so that the next time we meet, you'll have more information to share with us. So I'm going to start. I'll then ask the planning board any other topics, and I'll take a quick round of topics that the public can throw out as well. So a couple things. Most of concerns in any of these hearings typically have to do with visual impact, sound impact, and clearly that includes lighting. So there will be some questions about hours of activities and any type of what we expect visually and what we expect from a sound. So when you talk about baseball, clearly it's aluminum bats, and so people want to understand what hours of operation are these things going to be happening, including the lights. And again, and then if you could think about around the fields, what type of visual barriers will there be? People will certainly have questions of the lights. So again, so it's sound, visual impact. You started to address, but I'm sure people have questions on oversight of the children. There's some, I can already hear community concern around that. And I guess those are the first ones that come to mind. I'm going to open up to the planning board to throw out any topics that quickly come to mind that we'll want to take a deeper dive on. John?
Yeah, I'll say fencing. I know we recently had a thing with the golf course and they want to put some big fences and there was some concern about wildlife interaction and things like that. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what fencing you intend to put up. I guess the other thing I'll just say is probably not on the top of your list, but we are also concerned about the emergency access to the adjacent property at cottages at Wandering Pond, and just to see where that is. And I know, we've been talking about that, and I think there's some agreements, at least preliminary agreements in place, but I'd like to see something noted about that.
Karen?
I'd like to hear a little bit more about weekend use of the property, and is there anticipation of things like tournaments and things like that? Which could impact traffic, lighting, noise, all of the above, especially in the fall during apple picking season, because the town is almost gridlocked during that time.
Other planning board members, any quick topics to throw out? Meg?
Yeah, I just want. One of the speakers said something about 1,000 parking spots, and I would like to know just more about the parking and the impact of resident vehicles in addition to the commuters. And everything else was covered. Thank you.
And I would say as well as spectators, I'm just going to add on to that. Any other planning board member topics to throw out? Nancy, you're on mute.
I wrote down 9 questions, but they mostly have to do with layout and design. So I can hold those.
Okay. I do think there is a question of why turf. You covered very well the makeup of the turf, but I feel like there's going to be some question about why turf as well. And now I'm going to move to the public. If you want to raise your hand and you want to throw out other topics that you'd like to learn more about next time, or have particular concern about. Is there any resident who wants to throw out any additional topics? Again, please don't repeat the topics we just threw out. Alexis.
Hi, thank you. Sorry if this was mentioned, but I want to know more about just public access in general. I think there's something in the development agreement for public passive access. So I assume it'd be limited, certain hours, pedestrian only, stay on the path, that type of thing, but would like to know more about that.
Great point. Other members of the public have additional topics they want to throw out? All right. I do not see any other hand. Oh, Ken.
Yeah.
If you're speaking, you're on mute, Ken.
Mute. Okay, just to throw it out, I don't know if it's appropriate time or place or group, but aquifer impact, the huge amount of water from here and from the other 2 major developments in town. I feel there's got to be a serious study done about what the impact is on the aquifer.
Okay, good topic, Ken. Alexis, did you have another one?
Yeah, sorry. In terms of lighting, I know we already mentioned it, but I haven't heard much discussion about the actual height of the lighting. I think it's up to 100 feet. And so I understand there's like a light spillage analysis already, but I'd like to get a better sense of just like how visible the lights themselves are going to be from offsite.
All right. Anybody else? Valerie?
I just wanted to take a moment just to note that I did share the staff memo with the applicant, and there were just a handful of clarifications and questions in there. So it might be good to
Right.
have responses in writing to those prior to the next hearing. I'm also wondering if just to move things along a little bit, if the board is interested in having a more in-depth traffic peer review. Sue Carter is actually able to do a quick analysis of the traffic impact study, but I know with other applications such as cottages, the board has asked for additional traffic peer review. So just some comment on that from the board. And then I also wondered if we wanted to schedule a site visit before the next hearing.
So first things first, what does the board think about site visit?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that would be
Okay.
helpful.
And then second question Valerie had for us is, do we already have an opinion of whether we want simply Sue to do the overarching review of the traffic, or do we want her to also bring in another traffic engineer for peer review?
Sue should have a letter in terms of engineering and an initial review of traffic shortly. So it's possible too that, you know, once the board just takes a look at what her comments are, if there is more that you're looking for, we can come back to that. It doesn't seem like there's an immediate reaction. So
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds like a good plan.
I think that is a good plan. Mark Forgis, want to add a topic in?
You do. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the traffic study, and the reason is that one of the things I believe is that if they don't meet up to 70% of people living on campus, they only get to 40% or 50%, and they end up farming more people out or having more people come in from off campus. How is that going to affect the traffic study?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. It is 8:02. Anybody have any last topics they want to throw in before we look to continue? All right, I don't see anyone. I guess Valerie, from a schedule standpoint, do we have a sense of when we could propose a continuance to?
yes, so Sue's review is underway as of last week. So we could choose to come back in 2 weeks at the board's next meeting. I think we do have one other public hearing scheduled for that day at 7:15. So we could do an 8:15 public hearing that night.
All right. I know I, for one, would rather start sooner than later because I would actually like to get a discussion in before the ZBA discussion so that we can give input.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So does 2 weeks work for everybody?
Yeah. When would we do our site visit?
So I already just thought of one issue with the 24th. Meg, are you able to be at the meeting that night, or do we need to step in?
I will make myself be available. I'll find somewhere to be that night wherever I am.
Okay.
Thanks, Meg.
So I can work with the applicant and come up with a couple of times for the board to take a site visit. Just as a reminder, the state still is viewing site visits as subject to open meeting laws, so we'll look to have a non-quorum at each site visit.
Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the continuance.
I move to continue the public hearing to September 24th at 8:15.
Second.
Any other discussion before we vote on the continuance? If not, we'll take a roll call vote on the continuance. Let's see, John,
Aye.
School is officially
Karen.
closed. I brought up your fins and everything today.
Nancy,
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
and I. All right, thank you everyone for coming, and we
Thanks,
will see you
everybody.
in 2
Thank you.
weeks.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Good night.